people, fine.
Okay. So I'll record this and it'll just have all that, and I'll share that. I'll share this recording with the people that didn't make it. I'll share it with everybody so they can kind of go back. First of all, I want to thank Gary for agreeing to kind of come on. He's probably given this presentation 6 or 7 times now and probably can do it in his sleep. And some of us in the room have probably heard it 3 or 4 times. But really tonight's meeting was set up to be a joint meeting between the kind of the task force that was put together by the mayor to go through the golf course property and to come up with a master plan, our Recreation Trust Fund Committee, and our Recreation Committee, so that Gary could kind of give an overview for those that have never seen the plan, not heard about the plan, or maybe don't understand exactly what came out of the plan. And for all of us to kind of have an open dialogue around what that logical next step is. So I kind of wanted Gary to go through a presentation that he's, again, given many times. It kind of starts at the beginning. We may go a little faster to kind of walk through where we are, but the presentation should take maybe, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes or so, Gary?
15, yeah.
Just to kind of go through where we were, how we got there, and what we ended up with. And my takeaway from today is to begin an open dialogue between all of us, all these committees, about what logical next step looks like from a phasing plan. And we'll get to what that budget is, and there's a large number there, but we knew, and what you'll hear is that these are we're not going to bite off the elephant, but we've got to figure out what are the little pieces that we're going to put together first to make some traction there. And I want to kind of get some feedback from everybody on the committee to figure out, what makes sense. What do we want to see? How do then I go back with Gary to kind of refine that budget and then start looking at granting opportunities to do those type of things. So with that, if there's no questions, I want to thank all the members from the different committees for being here tonight. And I will let Gary jump right in, unless, Mayor, is there something you want to say, or Terry?
I thank everybody for being here. Obviously, we all know this is an extremely large project, and so, but it is important to this community that do something with that property and bring it back to life, because the way it is now is very disappointing to the whole community. So I think we have opportunity to bring it forward. So I appreciate all of you being here. Thank you, guys.
Is there more folks that's not featured?
No, that's the only folks that are joining us online. So online we've got Rob, obviously Gary, and then Dick Kraft.
Okay.
Yep. All right, Gary, it's all yours. Again, thank you. Like I said, I know you've given this presentation to a couple of different groups over the last, probably 6 months or so as we've gone through this. So I appreciate your time. And again, I thank you for being a part of it.
Yeah, no problem. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
I assume, Doug, that the master plan report is available online at the town site. So what we're going to go through tonight is we're really going to kind of summarize this more detailed report. So if you have some questions after the meeting, you could perhaps go to this document and get a little bit more information, because I'm going to kind of run through it a little bit quickly. And Doug, if you can kind of help with your cursor over there and kind of point to some stuff. First off, I just want to thank the mayor, the town council, the town staff, and the citizens of Rutherfordton, and especially the golf course, the golf course task force committee, for all the time and effort that everybody put into participating in this master planning of the golf course project itself. So what I'm going to do is, you can see on the screen, if you can, there's the first sheets of what we do in a master planning process is we do a site analysis. And that's the sheet that you see to the left. It looks at the soils. So the soils are kind of in the brownish colors. The darker the color, the worse the soils are. So the lighter the colors, the better the soils are in terms of water table and depth to bedrock, and a lot of things that deal with buildability and suitability for construction. Down the center of the site, there is a creek with the little blue dots, and there's other little tributaries that come as the blue dots get bigger. It's a little bit more water. There's also a blue area surrounding that that represents the floodplain. There's a little bit of floodplain right in the middle of the site. And then perhaps one of the things that we really wanted to acknowledge during this analysis is the north-south Crestview Park Trail. So Crestview Park is to the south with a little arrow that points to it going down that way. And it continues north above the creek to other points north of the site. The other yellow dashed line is more of a regional trail system called the Overland Victory Trail. And it basically runs east-west through this site. So this analysis basically looks at acknowledging that there are some trail connections that we want to make beyond the environmental concerns that we also show on this analysis. There's also some little red arrows that show possible access points to it. And then Doug, just point to the existing clubhouse, right? So that building there is the existing clubhouse and the parking lot for the golf course. Next slide. So this is an aerial photograph of the site itself. It shows the clubhouse again, where the little cursor is right there, and then the parking lot, but it also shows the layout of the 9 holes that are existing or were existing on this site prior to us taking a look at it. The golf course itself was not, successful and ended up being not playable anymore. And so it's kind of laid fallow for a little bit. And so our exercise here was to look at what options do we have, both in terms of the desires of the town and the desires of the citizens to create a public recreation facility on this site. It's important to acknowledge that to find 45 acres of land that you have under town control in this area is a real asset to the community. And making those plans for future recreation on this site, I think bode well for the future development, as well as the economic impact that a nice recreational facility can have on surrounding land values and the livability of the town of Rutherfordton in and of itself. Next slide. So our first steps were, once we understood what the program was, and looking at both the golf course task force information, as well as some of the parks and recreation information, we came up with, this is master plan A. It basically shows a recreation center. If you want to move that, Doug, right over the recreation center. So that's a recreation center. It's got multiple levels. It has exercise, has indoor basketball. On the lower level, there's a swimming swimming pool. And then that lower level comes out on that little tan terrace. So the building itself, the grade that's there. So you enter on the main level, which is the middle level. You can go up to some offices, and I'll show you some schematic plans of that. And then you go down to the swimming pool, and then you can go out onto this patio that we envision. Lots of things that can happen out there. It could be little movie nights. It could be the slope that goes down the hill behind that patio. Could be used for winter sledding. You guys got any snow up there?
No, we didn't get any this time.
Didn't get any.
We all did our snow dance, but it didn't work.
But I think that it was acknowledged that sledding might be a nice little thing that has happened on this site in the past. Maybe you could have little hot chocolate and a little fire pit on that patio, and have a lot of activity during the winter months using the site there itself. Not in the winter, where the cursor is, there is what we've laid out there is, instead of golf course, is a disc golf course. So there's like 18 holes of high level high level being a very interesting and intricate, it would be a good course to play for beginners. It would attract more expert disc golfers. It's got an integration of 18 holes with other par 3 holes. It has a lot of variation, but would be an attraction for that portion of the site. And then right in the middle of the site, you can see, or going around the entire site, there is a trail, a walking trail. It goes around the site. It has access to Fairway Drive, so the community there on the lower left can access right into the site. North-south, where the cursor just was, is the connection to the Crestview Park Trail. And then basically the east-west portion of this walking trail is the Overland Victory Trail. So you can see that as we went through our site analysis, it doesn't quite go directly east-west, but follows some of the topography and works with the disc golf. Creates the two trail connections that we have both regionally and locally. Right where the cursor is, then go back up to the indoor recreation facility. This is a practice facility. It could be like a bubble, but it would be an indoor facility. It is about the size of half a soccer field. So it's not a full soccer field. You could have youth games, but really it's an indoor practice facility, could be used for various sports and could be used year round in there. It was also one of the things that we wanted to acknowledge from the Master Parks and Recreation Planning and the development of the site. The site access comes off of Tilly Morris, Twitty Ford Road, excuse me, and goes it kind of is a direct shot right to the little circle in front of the recreation center. And then the other portion of the park that is to the lower right, where the cursor is now, is that there is a picnic shelter. Yeah, right there, Doug. There's a picnic shelter. It's got a playground facility for youth. It's got a spray ground, which would be kind of a water feature, play in the water kind of thing. And then part of our charge was also to acknowledge that this was a golf course. There's still a desire for golfing activities in this scenario. And so on the lower right, as you move down, there's another access off of Edward Street with a little small parking lot. And it's got, again, a restroom and a picnic shelter down there. And it's got a chipping green, a putting green, and it's got a little practice hole, little chipping hole. And then also there's like a bank of 6 driving range cages. And then just to the left of that is a pump track for mountain biking that kind of comes off of the trail system. So that essentially is Master Plan A that was developed and we took some comments on. At the same time, we did Master Plan B, which was basically a similar project with the trail going around, but there was a desire to explore the possibility of perhaps selling off some of this town land to for other types of development. For instance, residential development there on the lower right, maybe some commercial office development, medical offices off of 108 to the upper left of the plan. This plan just shows the indoor practice facility with no recreation center. It also has a health and wellness garden that kind of ties the health and wellness to the neighboring hospital. And it comes off of the other road there for the parking. The playground is now shifted to kind of the middle of the site with the restroom, playground, and spray ground. And then again, the practice facility for the golf is right up in that upper corner. It still has the east-west trails. It still has northwest trails. It still has a substantial amount of disc golf. Next slide. So Master Plan C is pretty much exactly the same as Master Plan B, except not selling off the properties. and holding them for future development. And so these three plans were basically presented to the public on June 30th, 2020 in the summer. So I'm just going to kind of quickly go through our public input. There was a comment card that you can see in the left there that said, do you have a preference, plan A, plan B, plan C? Welcome to put any additional comments on there. So the pie chart to the right shows that 49% preferred plan A, 7% plan B, 17% plan C, and 20% plan C, 24% none of the above, which is fine. And next slide. So we also, so what was there, 80 people show up? Or 80 people online and in person?
Yeah, we had probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 come through that day, but we had over 80 comments between the online and the in-person.
So what this next slide shows is, we asked for what people liked or what people didn't like about the public during the public input stage of the project. And you can see plan positives in the green on the left side, upper left. Disc golf was popular, mountain biking was popular, the pool, the indoor recreation facilities, splash pad, etc. Plan negatives, similarly, there was some negatives for disc golf, and there was a decent amount of negatives about selling the land. The other elements, there was a good amount of people that wanted the golf course to stay or a driving range, a little bit for a dog park, nature park. So our charge then, along with the golf course, the task force committee, was to try to glean these comments and come up with a final master plan that not only reflected plan A, B, and C and some combination thereof, but also these comments that we got through the public comment process. And so the next slide, Doug. So this is the final master plan for the project. It's mostly similar to plan A, where it has the rec center, it has the indoor practice facility, it's got a good amount of parking. The playground is now kind of up in the center there with a restroom, a picnic shelter, playground, and then the spray ground is still in that. So that was good. The rec center is similar to what we described before with the multiple levels coming out on the bottom. The disc golf is there. It's got basically 18 holes of main disc golf course, and then it's also got another 18 holes of a par 3. So it's all kind of intertwined in there, but there's a substantial amount of disc golf that can happen on the site. If the east-west trail is still there, the north-south connectors are still there. The connection to Fairway Drive is still there. The pump track has moved to the upper portion of the site nearest the clubhouse. Oh, and by the way, every plan that we showed did have a connection to the clubhouse facility that's right up in there. So there's connectivity, the neighborhood's connectivity to the clubhouse, good correlation to the hospital area. But so one of the bigger changes that we see in this master plan is really to acknowledge more of a golf presence, a golf practice facility on the site. So if you go to the top there, Doug, of the facility, there's another restroom, a picnic shelter. There are driving cages right there. So you can practice your long shots. There's a putting green, a chipping green. And then there's also 3 holes of par 3 golf. And each of the 3 holes has 4 separate, they're different lengths. They have 4 separate tees. So they give you three or four different shot scenarios or looks as a practice facility. You could play it 3 times and have, kind of nine different shots to these 3 par 3 holes. Anticipate that these greens would be artificial greens. So we really want to look at, minimal maintenance, because the maintenance is what is really a big cost factor, and not having to do a lot of watering and a lot of grooming and mowing of the greens and everything. So our thought is that these are all going to be artificial greens. There is a netting along the southwest there, or the southeast along that property line, to keep any stray shots from going into the adjacent housing. There is no parking access off of Edward Street, as one of the plans showed. And the main entrance now is off of Dr. Henry Norris Drive, that comes down and goes back to the circle in front of the clubhouse facility. And there's a secondary access or entrance and egress on Twitty Ford Road. So, it's basically, I can't remember, probably 80 to 90 cars of parking. We're fortunate that, I think that there would be, if there wasn't a big event, the parking lot across the street for the hospital might be able to house additional parking. But so this is the master plan that was kind of approved. Go to the next sheet, which is more of a detail of that development area. I kind of went over it already, but you can see it a little bit better. The rec center, the indoor practice facility, the playground, the shelter, the splash pad, and moving around toward the south, above to the north, above the splash pad, you can see some circuitous pump track area for mountain biking, and then the golf course practice facility to the middle and lower right, showing the 3 holes in a little bit more detail. You can see some summary of the master plan. There's the 19,000 square foot rec center. There's 18 holes of disc golf, 21 holes of par 3 beginner disc golf. The walking track around the site is 1.3 miles. There's 3 par 3 practice holes. There's a 40-yard chipping green, 4,500 square foot putting green. There's the plaza and lawn adjacent to the rec center. Doug, if you want to put your cursor on that, it's that space between yes. So if you had some special events, you wanted to have an outdoor tent or something for a special event, you got an outdoor green area that could serve that purpose as well. They got the play area, the splash ground, other restaurant. 146 parking spaces are in this plan, and then access from Dr. Henry Norris Drive. If you want to go to the next plans, Doug, these are just some schematic plans. Troy Lutman, of Lutman Architecture was our consultant on this. So this is not something I made up. I had a real architect come in and help us out. You can see to the right that you enter where it says 18,300 square. That's the level that you enter off the parking lot. It's got the gymnasium, and then you go up and down to, there's office above, and then above the gymnasium would be an indoor walking track that goes around on the upper level. So it's kind of open with a walking track on the gymnasium level, and then go down to the aquatic center on the bottom floor. Next slide. So you can see this is the main level floor plan. You come in, you enter off of at the right where the parking, you enter at the bottom where the parking lot is, and you've got the gymnasium and restrooms and locker rooms to the left. You got offices, educational buildings, educational rooms to the right, a multi-purpose room, as well as men's and women's restrooms on that level, stairs and elevators to get up and down for access. And then next slide. This is the upper level It's not a full upper level, but you can see that you would come up the stairs or up the elevator. There are some restrooms and a walking track that basically goes around the above and around the gymnasium. And there's could be some fitness stations around the walking track as well. And then the next slide, Doug, is the aquatic level, which is below the gym. You know, it opens up into that lower terrace that looks out onto the disc golf or the sledding hill. There's opportunities there for all sorts of community meetings, outdoor theater, could be movie night at the park, all sorts of neat things that could happen in there. So that's kind of the floor plans and the master plans. And then the next and the last sheet is going to be our overall estimate for the project. And, you know, while it has a big price tag, we feel pretty confident that it's buildable in today's dollars for this amount of money. You know, infrastructure, paving and parking, playgrounds and shelters, splash pad, golf practice area, the disc golf, pump track, exercise stations. The rec center is just under 10 million. The indoor training facility is 3.6 million. And I will tell you that indoor training facility is a direct number that we used from the Panthers training facility here in Charlotte, which is a nice bubble structure, but it's actually the contractor's pay app that we had and we knew of. So those are some realistic numbers. General mobilization design, it's a $21 million price tag all in. Now, you know, Doug, I'll let you talk about costs a little bit, and where we go from here, but that's basically the presentation that we gave to the town board and presented it to them for their approval. And as I said, you know, there is a lot more information in the master plan report that has a lot more verbiage, as well as pictures and a lot of other information for your use and edification in case you have some questions.
Yeah, so everybody's got a copy of the plan in front of them. I guess I want to first stop, and if there's any questions anybody has of Gary about the process, about specific items, really just any kind of general questions first. Well, if not, what I'd like to really focus on is if you turn to page 17 in the book that you've got, 17 might be a good option, or if you want to turn to page 17, then maybe even flip out your at the back of the book is a big map, and you can kind of lay them there side by side. One might be a little larger than the other. They're really kind of the same thing. The one on page 17 kind of has a detail there. That detail doesn't automatically translate over to the budget, but we can roughly guesstimate going back and forth with the budget about what those things are. But one of my things I'd like to try to figure out tonight is kind of have some conversation around what are some of the things. We put together this large plan. There obviously is a budget there. It's a very large budget. When we kind of wrapped up our work with the task force and into talking with the town council, when they approved this, I mean, one of the visions there was, this is really the town's recreation complex for the next century. This is not something that's going to happen overnight, but it provides us an opportunity to chip off recreational opportunities and continue to be on the forefront of, you know, different things in our community over the long haul. So what I would like to do is be able to get some feedback from this group to figure out what are some of those things that maybe make sense on that first round. Is it the recreation center? Is it the disc golf? Is it the par 3? Is it the practice facility? Is it the pump track? So then we can begin to look at kind of what a true phase 1 budget is and funding and those type of things.
One question, because for my ignorance, contingency design and permitting. What's included in that?
So that's going to be your architectural fees, your engineering fees, whatever permit fees you might have, and then your contingency, obviously your.
Yeah. So at this phase, we want to put in a 10 to 15% contingency that basically says, you know, we don't know what surprises we might have or what the pricing might be in 5 to 10 years. So that represents probably, you know, it's probably 10% contingency, and then the other 10% is design and permitting costs.
Are there any ongoing discussions with our group out of Shelby on the building?
There are. Obviously COVID has kind of thrown a little bit of that for a monkey wrench, but in a post-COVID environment, that's definitely a conversation we're keeping up with. So yes.
So that, to me, yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious. Look down there, the last two things to be put in economically would make sense to me would be the building and the training center, because there's a really high ticket items,
right?
Especially the building.
And a lot of those things, you know, again, I really don't want us to get caught up on how this estimate is broke down, because Gary did a great job giving us a realistic number, but this estimate's kind of broke down on, you know, if Tommy walked in the door and gave us $21 million, this is where that we would spend that. What I want to try and figure out are what are the elements that make sense for a phase one, and they're not, I guess, they associate with this budget. What the elements are going to be: is it disc golf? Is it a practice facility? Is it some parking? That's going to have a different number. You know, 71,000 for the disc golf, probably close, but you're going to have some infrastructure costs, some paving, you know, if you decide to do a shelter and some bathrooms. So it's not necessarily going to be $71,000 if you follow what I'm getting at. What I really want to get some feedback on is what are some of those elements that make sense for phase one. And phase one might always have a caveat, an asterisk, if that conversation with the group out of Shelby, or if that conversation with Duke Life Point, you know, comes to fruition and there's major dollars there. Obviously, we're going to take advantage of that. But if we're kind of chipping off and raising money on our own, what are some of the things that we want to see? What are some of the things that we want to try and achieve?
Well, from the standpoint of the land and that kind of thing, how much of the infrastructure would need to be done prior to anything? I mean, there's got to be a certain amount of.
I think it really just depends on what exactly we choose. You know, if we say phase one is the driving cages and a chipping putting green and, you know, 9 holes of disc golf, then, you know, we probably need to reevaluate how that works for some parking. You know, it might be 1/10 of that cost. It might be more, you know, I don't know. I hate to be so fluid, but really I don't necessarily want us to get stuck on these numbers. Obviously it puts us in a realistic perspective. I'm more trying to figure out, when I go back to Gary and say, okay, Gary, after tonight's meeting, you know, we really need to hone in on what something looks like for these pieces of a golf practice area, disc golf, and mountain biking. I'm throwing 3 things out there. How do we begin to look at what that really looks like? Does that make sense, Gary?
Yeah. If I could just add that these are just kind of, you know, grouping everything into one category. You know, the parking, paving, and pathways. That's all of the parking. That's all of the pathways. That's all of the paving. So, you know, if we did a chunk of that, if we did 25% of that, you know, the costs go down once. But so I agree with Doug. If we could, as a team, as a group, as a town, you know, hone in on, yeah, we want to do the disc golf and the golf practice facility and the playground first. You know, that gives us the direction to figure out how is that achievable, and, you know, without painting ourselves into a corner of achieving the overall master plan in the future. So, you know, so I think the numbers can be scary, but just keep in mind that those are the wholesale numbers for each of those categories, and that they can be broken down into smaller pieces based on budgets and grants and other private participation.
It wouldn't be hard to do parking with disc golf. Maybe a shelter. Once you get something started, then you get everybody involved. That would be easy.
Was there any consideration, or is it in there, maybe I missed it, on lighting of the disc golf course?
No, and I don't know. I mean, I know some of disc golf. Gary's kind of got me turned on to it a little bit, but I'm not sure about if that's something that's typical.
Not very typical. To light all of the disc golf would be, number one, it would be expensive, you know, for I think a limited amount of play. It also, you don't want a lot of the spillover light, you know, that would affect neighbors and things like that also in the evenings. You know, disc golf is not really, you know, we might be able to come up with a little circuit of, you know, 9 holes that maybe could be lit, or does the golf practice facility get lit? You know, and that becomes our evening activity. That's kind of a little bit more contained area that could be done, you know, I think a lot more economically, because it's a bigger area that you could spill light out into versus more of a lineal area for the disc golf that you'd be running a lot more light poles.
The only problem with lighting the golf practice facility is Tommy would never go home, and so
Hey, I don't practice. That's just one thing you have to worry about.
he don't practice.
He don't practice. Well, what I was getting at, I guess, more than anything, was if it appears to me that the majority of the infrastructure is from here up, from the back of the swimming pool up. The rest of the land, which is a majority of the actually acreage, is just kind of there. It's going to remain there, so it wouldn't have to be a lot of grading.
Right.
You put in pads for the tees, right, where they tee off, where they make the first.
Yes.
There's a pad.
Yep.
And then you have the pole and the whatever. And so there wouldn't be a lot of. That's why it's less expensive, obviously.
Right.
We don't have to grade that whole area to put it in.
Yeah, I mean, you know, some of the folks, and Gary, I don't, you know if this is correct or not, so I'll just say it out loud. You correct me if I'm wrong, but I've talked to a couple of folks in the area, and they've basically told me for the course itself, you know, just by the time, not including the parking, not including, you know, a restroom or bathrooms or shelters like that, just the actual course, to do a really, really high level course, our budget would be around $1,000 per hole. And that would include the signage, would include the tee box and the target, you know, the goal. And that'd be for one target, one hole. Obviously, it could be more challenging with multiple baskets on a hole and that kind of thing. But to do one basket, a really nice tee box, and the signage around that, about $1,000 per. Does that sound about right, Gary?
Yeah, I think it. Yeah, I think that might be a lot of private people, you know, disc golf people coming in and building it themselves. You know, if you went to a contractor, I would suspect it's higher than that. But disc golf is a very economical way, and I'm not sure who asked the question about, you know, what's there now. All you got to do now is just keep mowing like you're doing, and you got disc golf. You know, you just got to set up the holes and the tees. It would be a way to activate this site in short order. And I feel in an economic, you know, without spending $1 million to do it. But I agree, Doug, you're right though. We would have to look at the parking. We'd have to provide some sort of restroom facilities. You know, can the old clubhouse be renovated enough to serve as that facility? You know, one of the things I didn't mention in the rec center was that there was a little area for like a golf disc golf pro shop that, you know, you might be able to franchise this out or have an operator come in and run the shop maybe for fees or something. You know, that's another question. You know, are you going to charge fees, or is it just a public park where people can come out and play? There's some administrative stuff that has to happen, but the disc golf can be built economically and quickly, and the site can be activated in short order with that facility.
I think, you know, if we're looking at this, we're looking at a draw to get people there and get them excited about the future of this. I think the disc golf is a big, big deal. I think that, like you said, is economical. I think the play area, we got to do some parking anyway. So we do the play area, we have the disc golf, the hiking and biking trail around the whole thing. And then you begin to have people experience the land, experience the property, and get them excited about it. And again, that begins, you know, and when you look at the numbers, and again, obviously, but that's a fairly relatively low input from a dollar and even time standpoint. And yet we get people excited about showing up at the property. And then we can look at phase 2.
I think, Doug, we don't have any indoor facility in any part of town, so everything's outdoor. Park. The newest one too.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things throughout this process is we had talked to basically the YMCA, without kind of saying in public, but we had talked to them, and we had talked to Duke LifePoint about, you know, helping fund something like this, and they were both agreeable to that. I talked to Cam Corder, who's the director at the Y, and I mean, obviously they've kind of pulled back in to COVID to weather the storm with being open and not open and programs and that, but anyway, they're still very interested, you know, in a post-COVID environment. When they start to see things start to move back out, they've financially weathered the storm, and they'd love to see something happen there. They've got a good arrangement with the town of Bowling Springs, with the one in Bowling Springs. I forget the actual name of the one in Bowling Springs there. But to do something very similar like that, they'd be interested in that. And Duke LifePoint has some interest in helping fund that. So that's always going to kind of be, I guess, in my mind, that's always going to kind of be this anomaly over here of seeking that higher level grant, seeking that higher level partnership to be able to get something like that moving, irregardless of where we are in these phases. You know, these little phases are going to be, I say, easier to put together partnerships and grants for than something that's at that, you know, probably realistically a $4 or $4.5 million price tag.
Where you say pathways, is that the trail? Would that be the trail?
Yeah. And Gary, that's a natural surface trail, right? That'd be like a crushed rock or something like that.
Yeah, we like to use what we call pit gravel. It's kind of a nice natural brownish color, but it's basically, it's rideable for bikes. It's nice for walking and jogging on. It's not paved. We don't have the cost in there to pave it, but I think the natural trail, if designed correctly, could be a nice feature here and very comfortable.
How wide?
How wide?
Yeah.
8 foot wide.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, it may be 10 foot. I don't remember how we estimated that. I'd have to go back and look. Is there a note on here that says what it is? I think it just has the lineal footage.
Because we've got a trail.
Yep.
And then there's a big one up here. But if it's something like that, it's different. Not the same thing that people are using here or they're using up there. If it's something different, you know,
yeah,
it could be advantageous.
I hate to put words in Terry's mouth, but I think Terry was one that said that exact same thing during the town council review, is having that natural service trail is something different. And I think we would get a fair number of use for it for people that are looking to run on lot of people are looking to run, but not run on.
It's easier on your legs.
It's a lot easier.
It's got a lot more creatures.
Yeah.
Plus, I think the developments that are around there, from Crestview all the way up into Forest Hill, you got people that can get over there real easy that maybe don't want to get in their car and drive down here to one end or the other. They just walk across and boom, they're on the trail, you know, doing what they want to do.
And and you can walk from your neighborhood, excuse me, and you don't have to cross any streets. You know, I mean, I'm been a supporter of the Purple Martin and all, from Kiwanis to Crestview and all, but you got to cross streets.
Yeah.
And anytime you cross the street,
Exactly.
I'm hesitant. And I'm one that likes natural surfaces when I walk. I like the natural more so than the asphalt. Well, this one, so I believe the access is about where David lived when he was alive, on Fireway.
Yep, just to the right.
David Covington lived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right in there is where the access is. So, you know, walking from the neighborhood and even the kids riding bicycles wouldn't have to cross any major roads. I mean, the neighborhood streets, but
Yeah, you can get from anywhere to that spot from over on that side.
Yeah. So, you know, that area, I mean, that's where I would head as opposed to getting in the car and driving somewhere else.
Exactly.
Well, and even if we're able to get that trail up from Crestview, you know, people coming through that way, or even we could do having that land on Frosty, do a nice crosswalk there at Frosty too, you know, to get out. There's a good number of people on Crestview Street, Tanner Street, Callahan, that kind of little area there.
Yeah, and if that access comes to fruition down there on the lower side, coming along behind where the creek, you know, you said we own some property down through there and have access to some other property. That would be a real good access right into the Crestview area.
Yep.
Because people worse come to worse, they could walk down there and come across right there.
Yep.
And even less problem.
And I think on the trail, the biggest expense, I mean, you'd have a little bit of grading, maybe a footbridge or something. I'm not.
Yeah, down there.
Remember the layout.
When you
now.
cross the.
But the gravel that they use would be the biggest expense in that. So I was looking to see if it was broke out, but it's not.
No, it's not. It's just a rough.
Yeah, two pretty good bridges. You might need a floor one outside of that.
Yeah, the one I walked it probably 2 weeks ago, and the bridge out to the left, closest to this side over here, it needs to be recovered as far as the wood on it, but it's got two heavy duty I-beams under it.
Yeah, that was we had to redo that many years. That washed out one time. We had to redo that one and the one on the other side, but they used, I don't think they used metal on the other one, did the other one?
No, that one's starting to wash out again. The one all the way to the far left, which would have been, I guess, from leaving 2 going up to 3, I guess, or leaving 1 going to 2.
Yeah.
It's starting to wash on the one side, but it wouldn't take much to fix it and refloor it. Yeah.
Right. So, some of those costs are in that number, in the disc golf number of having the bridges replaced or repaired. So we have that already taken in account.
Well, this has been really helpful. What I've got wrote down is disc golf, shelter, bathrooms, play area, hiking and biking trails, and parking, and obviously the indoor rec center. I think, I mean, short of that, that'll give me some opportunity to meet with Gary and kind of refine the budget a little bit to see what all those mean independent of the whole project, and kind of start to see what really makes sense, kind of a natural progression into coming back.
Too, at the very outset, when he started talking about what we might think about, he mentioned the golf practice area. I think that would be a good addition because it's right there where it's going to be seen. People drive up and down Edward Street may not see some of the other stuff that's going on, but if they see something right there, it might tend over time, especially to create a little bit of interest.
Yep.
If you just did the hitting cages and a practice ring,
Yeah, something there on that, yeah, in that property right there.
Well, and honestly, you know, if this was just incrementally a little larger, it could serve as the kind of welcome center for this development part now and the disc golf, as this part is, you know, waiting to be developed. So, you know, I don't know if this originally had bathrooms in it or not, but if this had a small bathroom and then there's shelter and kind of welcome for both.
We had restrooms, and so it's kind of a one building. Half of it is a restroom, half of it is a covered shelter with some picnic tables underneath it. It could get more shelter if we wanted to have a bigger covered area. You know, it probably has 2 or 3 water closets each side, depending on, you know, what we, you know, if it's one facility for the build, you know, at the beginning, you might have 3. If it's just for the golf in the build out, it might just be 2 each side. That's stuff we deal with. But yes, so both at the playground and at the golf, each of those buildings was estimated to have restrooms and a covered area. You know, you don't have to walk, you know, in the build out, you wouldn't want to walk from the playground to the rec center to go to the bathroom, you know, and vice versa. You wouldn't want to walk from the golf practice facility to the rec center to go to the bathroom. So those restrooms were included and cost estimated in both of those little small structures that you see on the plan.
I think Gary may have mentioned this too. Somebody did. I think it was Gary that, you know, in the meantime, that clubhouse could serve as the disc golf. You know, it would take a little bit of work inside, but there's 3 bathrooms in there. You know, it might take some work, but you're still, how many people in the disc golf are going to be, you know, once they get out on the course, they're going to be going behind trees or whatever else like that.
The problem with that, and the problem with it is there's nothing in that building that's handicap accessible, and it's been closed. So it'd be a change of use when we go to open it back up, turn the power on and re-permit it. So it could get more expensive to renovate that building than it would to just bulldoze it and start over.
It's just something that could be looked at, though, instead of having to, you know. But if
you
incorporate that as the golf and the par 3, I mean the golf practice and the disc into one building, then that would be ideal.
If the rec center is 20 years out, you might spend some money on the clubhouse. If the rec center is 5 years out, you know, spending money on that clubhouse just to demo it in 4 or 5 years might not make a lot of sense, depending on how much it would cost to get it up and running again. Just keep in mind that the existing clubhouse is getting removed and demolished in our overall master plan scenario.
Is that clubhouse on city sewer? Is there a line running the sewer? Yeah.
Yeah.
Down the hill all
yeah. Well, that was what I was thinking about, all the infrastructure part of it, you know.
I don't know if a manhole was really close to there except for the one that goes down the creek, and then you got to go up toward the hospital for the first one on 44 way up there. I don't know.
To the best of my knowledge, there were never issues with the sewer. So it must be something.
Yeah, I don't know because we ever had any problems over there with that.
It's not a septic tank.
No. Okay. I'd say that.
There's a sewer line that runs north-south through the property at the creek.
Yeah, I was just wondering if the old clubhouse was on city sewer or was on septic tank. I don't know anything really close to it.
I'm pretty sure it's
Unless there's a sewer line that goes down Woodland Circle. Wonder if it comes off of that.
There's nothing, not too far.
Probably
a long ways off.
That's what I guess. But I know being a treasurer over there in the 70s and being involved as a president, we never had a sewer issue.
But yeah, but that's the first thing I think of.
Yeah.
What would you click on that? And if you do anything else, you definitely need to run a line if you don't have one now too. So,
the existing sewer lines are mapped on the first site analysis sheet. So you can see the sewer line that runs through Woodland Circle and you can see sewer lines that come through. I don't know if they're in the exact right place or not, but you can see them that there is sewer available. You know, if the clubhouse was connected to the sewer, you know, we might just be able to use that connection and save a significant amount of some infrastructure cost of not having to run a new lateral. Of course, we might want to have it scoped and make sure it's okay, but that's an option, something to look at.
Well, that would say, I mean, and here again, I'm speaking from ignorance. I've never built anything, but you know, it looks like to me from the rec center back is where all the plumbing, all the electrical, everything's got to be infrastructure is back that way. Because all the rest of it is a disc golf course. We don't need electricity. We don't need plumbing. We don't need water, you know, anything. It's just, you know, it's all going to be in this one area, which should, you know, and if there's a sewer there, as Gary said, that would be a big help to start with.
All right.
Yeah, I like that idea.
This gives me direction to start really putting a budget together that makes sense for these items. Yeah. What would need to, you know, we don't need 146 parking spaces. We can utilize things. So this kind of gives me an idea of, you know, where we want to go. And that was kind of the thought of tonight's meeting. And I hate that Sherry and Drew and a couple others from the Recreation Committee weren't here. And so I'm glad we're able to record this. We'll get it over to them. Gary, I'll get back with you over the next couple of weeks and work through some of this stuff and kind of keep our ball rolling and keep this moving.
Well, I'm excited to continue to participate with everybody up there. I really love working in that community up there, and just think that I'd like to see something get built out there. I want to be involved in it. It's a very exciting project for us.
Same.
When the grading company comes in, whatever route we go, parking lot, whatever, got to be the grading.
Yes.
Keep in mind that the indoor training facility, although maybe it's later down the road, but while the graders are there, they can grade off a flat area there and throw grass on it and have it as a flat surface to do some training of some sort, but it'll be outdoor until that building is in the works. And that'll be an area, because there's always, you know, there's soccer, football, that you can just use an open field with grass.
Yep.
That's a great idea.
That's a good idea.
That's a really good idea.
So you got to grade the parking lot. So just that, because it was what? Because half a soccer field, would that be a 50 yard by 50 yard?
50 yards.
Roughly?
Yep.
Yeah, that, I mean, 50 yards right there is what we talked about being covered, because that's pretty good size covered field.
It is.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty good size.
So
you can do a lot. You can do a lot under there.
Yeah, I may not be able to build it now, but at least grade while the company's there, grow grass.
Yep, that's a good idea.
So if you get something going and people playing and people seeing it when the COVID goes around, you're gonna have more people going to put money into it.
Yeah.
Well, that's, you know, was my thought on the as they drive on Everett Street, a lot of it they can't see, but if there's something going on there on holes 8 and 9, there's something being built there and something comes to life right there, they're gonna see it. Every time they drive by, no matter where. If they're coming, people come to the hospital, come up Frosty Lane and turn right, coming off 221, when they're coming from other parts of the county, they're gonna see that.
Yeah.
It'll be used too.
Oh, and the first thing you put out there, you know, that shelter, that welcome center, whatever goes along with, you know, whatever goes on the ground first, it gives you opportunity to market what we're doing. You know, you establish a, you know, project board and budgets and how to donate and how to get involved, and it'll create some buzz. So
I don't have any connections in the disc golf world, but I do know that a few months ago, Lake Lure had a tournament at their facility, a disc golf tournament. From the parking I saw and the people around, it was huge. So I don't know what the connection was. I came through that way going to my daughter's house in Greenhill, and I had an appointment, or I slowed down and stopped and took some pictures of the sign. But we're talking just banners everywhere, and people was everywhere, and it was some kind of tournament. And they use the fire station out there as part of a base for registration and things like that. So if anybody's got connections with the people at Lake Lure Golf Course.
I cut that out when we were studying at Lake Lure hosts Pro-Am disc golf. It was one of the biggest, it's the fastest growing sport in the world. The disc golf open, not the national disc golf. I think somewhere along in here it says that this was one of the major tournaments of the year in this pro disc golf.
Okay, there you go.
It was pro.
Well, I came through that day, and I could tell it was big, but like I say, I don't have any connections to call and find out about it. I'm glad you brought that out, Jack.
They paid a minimum of $300.
It's a big sport. I've kind of got my kids into it. Matter of fact, my oldest daughter asked for a set of discs for Christmas, and that's what's one of her bigger presents. And we've been going and playing. It's fun. We went.
They got their own kits. They're buying their stuff and they're buying.
We went down where my parents live at the beach. They live Surfside, but if y'all familiar with the old Air Force base there at Myrtle, they just opened up a disc. They just opened up a disc golf course there, 18 holes. We went one Saturday, and it was we had to wait in line. I mean, we had to wait. There were so many people playing. We had to wait in line at each hole. I mean, it was fun. We was out there with the kids, but got my dad's a huge golfer. He plays golf, normal golf, probably 4 days a week, and works at a golf course on the weekends, and he was enjoying it.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, and Doug, this is going to have a lot more topo and up and down than the Myrtle Beach does.
Well, they took theirs. They just opened it. We talked to one of the guys that was kind of a regular there, and they said it had been open about 3 weeks. That the city had kind of thrown it together for COVID. But it was in the woods. They tucked it into the woods. It was pretty technical. It was all in the old pines there.
Yeah.
But yeah, having the elevation makes a lot of difference. Having some of the stuff we've got too, as far as like using some of the tee boxes that we have now that are elevated to be able to throw from the elevated tee box.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be really neat.
Well, I think elevation will be something there that, will make it unique.
Oh yeah, make it more difficult.
Yeah. And the first tournament you have, I bet it'll be a doozy.
Yeah. And having the water, having the creek and the pond.
Yeah.
Using that for some shots.
I was curious some extra discs.
They got some floating ones.
Yeah. Losing a disc is going to be a lot more than losing a golf ball.
That's right. Well, Gary, thank you for joining us. Rob, appreciate you staying online with us. I think we dropped Dick. I'm going to stop everything. Gary, I'll be in touch, and maybe sometime next week or week after, and we'll have if you don't mind, maybe we'll set something up, just chat for a little bit.
Yes, sir. No problem.
Right,
anytime.
Good.
Thank you all.
Sir.
I'm going to give you my trivia golf question on the Super Bowl and Rutherfordton Golf Course.
Yeah.
He knows